Hello everyone. In this video I want to talk about the soul. Now I'm doing this all from memory and I'm not looking at any notes and I'm just doing this off the top of my head really. So be patient with me as I am probably going to stumble around on my words with things and probably not say it the way I should say it. Anyways, what is the soul? Well, technically, if you look at the word soul in the Old Testament, if you look at the Hebrew word for soul, it actually means something closer to the throat. This whole area, we might say, is what we consider the soul. But the interesting thing about words in Hebrew is that words in Hebrew don't just mean one thing. And so that's why it says, "Bless the Lord, all my soul." It's talking about not only this area, your vocals and all that, but it's also a way of saying your whole person, your culmination of who you are. Bless the Lord, all my soul. Let my whole part of me bless the Lord. That's what that verse is about. That's what that verse is talking about. So, what else might we say about the soul? And I'm coming at this from a biblical standpoint rather than a secular standpoint, so that should be understood. But the basic idea is this: that the soul is really the what we might consider the first person narrative that a person lives out their life. The sort of manner of experiences that a person has is very conductive to what the soul actually is. And this is, in some sense, people like Inspiring Philosophy. I don't know if you guys know about his channel. It's called Inspiring Philosophy. And what he will say is there's this kind of thing for the mind. And the mind is immaterial. And that's a key part of it, is that even though you look at quantum physiology, quantum biology, that sort of thing, that there's this sort of immaterial aspect to the mind, in some sense connected to the brain, that shows that there's a kind of way that things relate to your first person experience that are not necessarily predicted. All right, that's what I would say, is that you can't look at a person's brain chemistry and go, oh, they're thinking this thought right now. It just doesn't work like that, because it's way too complicated for that sort of deduction to take place. So the soul that's the more immaterial part of the soul. However, I would say, there's an overlap there between what I would say is the soul and the spirit. But on the other hand, I would say the spirit is more of a transcendent thing rather than a rudimentary thing of soul. So the soul is really a first person narrative, what it's like to be you. That's what I would say. Whereas the spirit is a certain embodiment of the supernatural, I would say. There's a supernatural aspect to the spirit that the soul does not necessarily have. The other way that I would view the soul is that it is a draw or a repulsion of the idea of God. So when you think of God, you think, yes, God, or do you think, no, God? So this is the idea behind the soul as well, is if you look at how the word soul is used in the Bible. I have an Accordance Bible software program where I can search for any word that I want and see all the places that it comes up in the Bible. Now, what happens if you do this with the soul is you get a lot of different verses, because the soul is a fairly common word in the Bible, especially the Hebrew Bible. And And what you'll see is that most often this is associated with how a person relates to God. It's just uncanny how this works. Almost most of the time that the word the soul is used is it's used in association with a draw towards or away from God. Now, if we and this is where it gets complicated because it also overlaps with our emotions. If you search for soul and you see how this word is used, is it's like Job says, I have bitterness in my soul or something like that. And so this idea that his soul is in some sense there's an emotion attached to it, which is this bitterness that he's experiencing through his first person narrative that is drawing him in some sense, pushing him away from God. And this is a really sort of a complicated thing because there's multiple things going on here at the same time. One thing would be is questioning God, really having this accusatory attitude towards God that you need to prove something to me. However, there's also a emotional attachment to that is saying, you can think about this in two ways. I think the two ways that I would say that are polar opposites that are maybe not necessarily in terms of emotion explicitly, but the way the soul works, that it dictates our orientation or attitude is either joy or sorrow or bitterness, but not really sorrow, but more bitterness. This sort of sneering sort of thing, and so when you read these, especially in Job, when you read about the soul, it's really interesting stuff that there's a multiple level of things going on at the same time. And so not only do you see this component of his soul, as in the actual throat and that area of the body, displayed in this way. If you read the soul in the Old Testament and you read it in terms of looking at how it says the throat, the neck, this general area, it'll make sense to you, which is really crazy. Because we don't normally think about the soul in those terms. We don't think the soul means neck at all. And we just think about the soul in terms of the immaterial brain or the immaterial mind that we have. However, I will say there is an association of a draw towards or away from God based on our soul's proclivity to our experiences. Now, the other way I would say it is there's bitterness and there's joy. So these two things really are the opposite things in our states of being, you might say, in our emotional landscape. Is there's parts of joy or there's parts of bitterness. So basically I would say the soul is this. It's your first person narrative that is a proclivity of your draw towards or away from God in the form of emotions, that being joy or bitterness. So that's really the way I would sum it up all together. Now, the other part of this is that I said that blood was associated with spirit earlier. I'm going to change that. I'm going to say the blood is associated more with the soul based on some recent discovery that I made when I was looking up things about the soul. So the blood would be associated with the soul rather than the spirit. So that's what I got for you guys today. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.